Right, grab a brew and let's get straight to it. The UK government has moved to ban Kanye West from entering the United Kingdom, and Wireless Festival has pulled the plug on his appearance. Yeah, you heard that right. Wireless cancelled, border denial, big drama. And well, it's about time someone asked the obvious question. Why him and not others? Why now and not always? This is Real UK Pulse. I'm Jack Carter. Let's not dance. First, the facts of the ban. The Home Office says they've used immigration powers to bar Mr. West from entry. Organisers at Wireless cited safety, reputational risk, and the public outcry around his recent statements as reasons to cancel. The net result is the same. Kanye, or Ye, whatever name he's using this week, will not be on a London stage. But we need to be precise. This isn't theatre. This is state power and cultural consequence intersecting. So let's look at what prompted it. The evidence that the government points to is uncomfortable, plain-speaking stuff. You don't get banned from a country over polite tautologies. Among the remarks that have been widely circulated and rightly condemned by many were lines I'm not proud to repeat but must because context matters. One of the most infamous, I'm going DEFCON 3 on Jewish people. That phrase, ugly, violent, targeted, circulated publicly, amplified on social media, and did what hateful rhetoric so often does. It alarmed, it harmed, and it prompted institutions to act. Horrific. No excuses. Now here's where the argument begins to sharpen. The government says it acted to protect public order and safety to prevent harmful speech from being platformed. Fine. Free societies have limits, incitement to violence, credible threats, that sort of thing. But free speech isn't a simple on-off switch controlled by whichever authority feels offended that day. It's a principle that requires consistent application. Otherwise, what you've got is selective censorship dressed up in the clothes of public safety. And it's the selective bit that matters. Because, and you know this, because you've seen it, there have been weeks and weeks of demonstrations across Britain, pro-Palestine demonstrations, every Saturday, some of them larger than the last. In those gatherings, campaigners have published footage and independent journalists have reported instances where anti-Semitic chants and rhetoric have been audible. There are reports of banners and slogans that many people, myself included, find chilling. So why the double standard? When thousands gather on our streets and in pockets some chant or display anti-Semitic lines, what happens? Often police manage the march. Politicians issue statements expressing concern. Sometimes the organisers are criticised. Sometimes they're asked to police their own ranks. Rarely, and here's the point, do we see the same straight-line punishment. A blanket ban, the immediate withdrawal of permission to assemble, or state-level denial of access to public spaces. Think about that. It's not that every demonstration has been anti-Semitic, far from it. Many protesters express anger about foreign policy, civilian deaths, humanitarian crises. Those legitimate expressions of grief and outrage deserve respect. But when the rhetoric crosses into targeted hatred, and when that hatred is publicly visible week after week, why is the state's response so different from its response to a single celebrity's hateful outburst? Why prosecute one but tolerate the other? Why ban the headline maker but treat recurring allegations with semi-detached concern? That, ladies and gents, is the heart of the hypocrisy argument. Let's unpack two-tier Britain. On one tier, you have powerful platforms and high-profile individuals. They get rapid, decisive institutional action. The contracts are torn up, the flights cancelled, the gigs banned. The reasoning is legalistic, risk to public order, but the speed and severity are political too. Institutions don't want to be seen allowing anti-Semitism on a marquee stage. On the other tier, you have movements, grassroots protests, sometimes messy, sometimes radical, whose fringe elements occasionally echo hateful slogans. Those get labelled complex or nuanced or the right to protest, and the response is often containment rather than exclusion. Selective outrage. It stinks. Why does this matter beyond righteous indignation? Because consistency in the enforcement of free speech norms is how a democratic system preserves credibility. If the state is arbitrating which forms of speech are immediately deportable and which are merely inconvenient, you create incentives. You incentivize powerful institutions to act swiftly against embarrassing individuals. They'll cancel a tour to look principled, while giving a pass to groups with political capital or public sympathy. That breeds a chilling effect that's not uniformly distributed. Some voices get silenced, others are shielded. That's not liberty, that's management. And it's political management at its worst. Now, let me be clear. I'm not standing up for Kanye's statements. I'm not defending the language he used. I'm defending the principle that the rule of law and civil liberties must be applied evenly. Otherwise, we're left with arbiters who choose winners and losers. That's slippery. And here's another slippery bit. Which side of the ledger you're on predicts whether you get punished or protected. Imagine you're a young activist at a march. You see hateful signs in your midst. You complain. You try to get organisers to remove them. Sometimes they do. Sometimes they don't. The state's response? A press release, a polite reprimand, maybe some arrests if there's violence. Not a wholesale nullification. But imagine you're a megastar and you say something vile on X or a podcast. Instant corporate sanctions, closed doors, cancelled contracts, and now a border ban. See the asymmetry? It's glaring. There are a few reasons politicians might choose this path. First, optics. Striking quickly at a celebrity buys headlines and demonstrates zero tolerance. Second, political calculus. It's safer to punish an individual who is already toxic in the media rather than confront an organised movement with thousands of supporters. That risks escalation and political fallout. Third, inertia and bureaucracy. Police and local authorities are often risk-averse and will negotiate, not ban. But none of these reasons are good enough if we care about equal application of free speech protections. We're left with theatre, not justice. Let me give you an analogy. Think of a school playground. If a child shouts a slur loudly in the middle of assembly, teachers might remove them from the event and ring the parents. If every week a group of kids at lunchtime persistently bully another child using the same slur, but the teachers say, "It's complicated, it's about the context," and do nothing, parents would rightly be outraged. Consistency matters in discipline, and the same holds for a democratic state. No double standards. Some of you will say, "But Jack, the state has to wear public order. A festival full of thousands, a march with tens of thousands. You can't treat them the same." Sure, but that's precisely the point. If scale and context matter, then show the public your criteria. Explain why one set of speech gets you banned at the border and another gets you a stern letter. If you can't provide that clarity, then you've chosen partisan discretion, over principle. And let's not pretend enforcement is impartial when the government picks which protests to criticize and which to defend. There's an argument here about state power and narrative control. When the state deploys immigration law against a musician, it sends a signal: we can and will exclude you. That's powerful. But when that same state tolerates repeated instances of hate speech in public protests, it signals something else entirely. That political capital can insulate one group from the consequences of hateful expression. Which raises a more uncomfortable question. Are we protecting a principle or protecting political coalitions? Think on that. So what should happen? First, transparency. The Home Office and police need to publish the standards they apply when deciding to ban an individual or to authorize, contain, or disperse a protest. Second, consistency. If anti-Semitic rhetoric in any context crosses legal lines, incitement, direct threats, pursue it irrespective of who is speaking. Third, independent oversight. An impartial body should review how speech-related enforcement decisions are made, so it's not just politicians playing judge on the front page. Simple? No. Necessary? Absolutely. I want you to be involved. Not because I'm being theatrical, because this is about the kind of country we want. Do we want a Britain where rules are handed down unevenly, depending on who screams loudest? Or do we want one where civil liberties endure, even when it's inconvenient? If you care, and I know you do, write to your MP. Ask for clarity. Ask for consistent standards for protest policing and for the use of immigration powers in cases of speech. Demand independent review. Because if we don't push back now, the precedent will only widen. Speak up. I know many of you are angry about what Ye said. So am I. But anger shouldn't make us hand over principles. The people who benefit from inconsistent enforcement aren't saints. They're political operators. Don't let outrage be a tool they use to rewrite the rules. In the end, this story is a test. It tests whether the Keir Starmer government will be consistent in protecting citizens from hate, or whether it will be content to pick targets that are easy, headline-grabbing, and politically convenient. They can do both, of course they can, but until we demand the evidence of equal application, skepticism is the honest position. Because liberty without equal protection is just another mechanism of control. So, tell us what you think. Message below. Share your experience of protests, of policing, of seeing double standards. We'll read your comments. We'll make a noise until someone with power has to explain themselves. This is Real UK Pulse. I'm Jack Carter. Stay loud, stay skeptical. Good night.